The massive crystal chamber floated in the darkness of space, glowing with soft blue light. Inside, 12 different alien beings sat around a circular table that seemed to be made of pure starlight. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in the known universe. For over 10,000 years, they had ruled countless worlds and controlled hundreds of different species. High Counselor Vextar was the leader today. His body looked like living glass, changing colors as he moved. He tapped the table with one of his long, thin fingers, and the room became quiet. "We are here to talk about a new species," Vextar said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "They come from a small blue planet in the outer edge of our galaxy. These creatures call themselves humans." The other council members looked bored. They had done this same meeting hundreds of times before. A new species would be discovered, studied, and then forced to join their empire. It was always the same story. Councillor Ralven, who looked like a giant red insect with 4 arms, clicked his mouth parts together. "I have read the reports about these humans. They are very primitive. They still use chemical rockets to move through space. Their biggest ships are smaller than our scout vessels." Yes, agreed Councillor Mordin, a purple creature covered in what looked like electronic circuits. "Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours. They have only just started to explore beyond their own solar system. They are like children playing with toys." The council members made sounds that were like laughter in their different languages. Councillor Zalos, who appeared to be made of shadow and mist, floated slightly above her chair. "Their weapons are laughable. Metal projectiles and crude energy beams. I have seen more advanced technology in our museum displays." "What about their numbers?" asked Councillor Beltar, whose rock-like body was covered in glowing crystals. "Approximately 8 billion individuals on their home world," Mordin replied, checking his glowing datapad. "They are spread across 7 continents. Most still live in primitive cities. They have small colonies on 2 nearby worlds, but nothing significant." Vextar nodded slowly. "And their government structure?" "Divided into nearly 200 separate nations," Ralven answered with amusement. "They cannot even unite their own species, let alone pose any threat to us. They spend most of their time fighting among themselves." This caused more laughter around the table. The idea that a species could be so divided was hilarious to the council members. Every species they had conquered had eventually learned that unity under council rule was the only path to survival. Their military capabilities. Vextar continued. "Primitive beyond measure," Zalos replied, her voice like whispers in an empty room. "They have no energy shields, no faster-than-light weapons, no planetary defense networks. Their most advanced warships would lose to our courier vessels." Councillor Thexval, whose blue skin was covered in flowing patterns, leaned forward. "I reviewed their historical records. These humans have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. Over the past century alone, they have had 2 major global conflicts that killed millions of their own kind." "Typical of primitive species," Vextar said dismissively. "They waste their energy on internal conflicts instead of preparing for the wider galaxy. This actually makes our job easier." The council members spent the next hour reviewing detailed reports about human society. They studied Earth cities, military bases, and space installations. Everything they saw confirmed what they already believed: humans were just another backward species ready to be absorbed into their empire. "Their culture shows promise," admitted Councillor Velkim, whose tentacled form shifted colors as she spoke. "They have art, music, and literature. They might provide some entertainment value once they are properly educated." "Entertainment, yes," Ralven agreed. "But nothing more. They have no advanced mathematics, no understanding of dimensional physics, no quantum computing systems. They are centuries away from developing anything useful to us." Vextar stood up, his crystalline body catching the chamber's light. "Then we are agreed. We will send the standard First Contact Fleet to System Sol 3. 3 cruiser-class vessels should be more than sufficient to establish their tributary status." The other councillors nodded in agreement. It was the same procedure they had followed for thousands of years. 3 ships would arrive, demonstrate the council's superior technology, and demand immediate surrender. The primitive species would panic, realize they had no chance of resistance, and quickly agree to become part of the council's empire. "I estimate total compliance within 1 solar rotation," Mordin said confidently. "Based on all previous encounters with species at this technology level, they will surrender immediately upon seeing our vessels." "Who will lead the contact mission?" Vextar asked. "Commander Veltar has volunteered," Ralven replied. He has successfully conducted 47 first contact missions. He knows the procedure perfectly. Excellent, Vextar declared. Commander Veltar will depart within 2 standard cycles. Once the humans have surrendered, we will begin the standard integration process. New mining colonies, population controls, and technology restrictions. The meeting was ending, and the council members were already thinking about other business. To them, humanity was just another item on a long list of tasks to be completed. They had conquered species far more advanced than these primitive humans. Some had technology almost as good as their own, but even they had eventually surrendered to the council's might. As the council members filed out of the chamber, none of them bothered to look at the detailed sensor readings from the outer regions of human space. If they had, they might have noticed some unusual energy signatures near the asteroid belts. They might have wondered why there seemed to be large construction projects in empty space. They might have asked why human ships were visiting areas where no colonies existed. But they did not look, because they already knew everything they needed to know about humanity. Or so they believed. Admiral James Mitchell stood in the observation deck of Lunar Station, watching the busy construction yards that filled the space between Earth and Mars. Hundreds of workers in space suits moved like tiny ants around massive metal frameworks. Sparks flew from welding torches as they built humanity's greatest secret, a fleet of warships that could change the fate of their entire species. "Admiral, we have important news," said Commander Kate Thompson as she walked up to him with a data pad in her hand. Her face looked serious and worried. "Our deep space monitors have detected 3 unknown ships entering the outer edge of our solar system. The Alien Council has finally decided to visit us." Mitchell nodded but did not look surprised. For 30 years, humanity had been waiting for this moment. 30 years ago, their best scientists had discovered something terrifying. Alien probe ships were watching Earth from hidden locations throughout the solar system. These probes were so advanced that they could record everything happening on Earth without being detected. Most world leaders had wanted to try making contact with the aliens immediately. But Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the head of the Global Science Council, had convinced them to wait. If they wanted to talk to us, they would have done it already, she had argued. The fact that they are watching us in secret means they are studying us. And when a more advanced civilization studies a primitive one, it usually does not end well for the primitive one. So humanity had made a dangerous choice. They would pretend to be exactly what the aliens thought they were, a backward, divided species that barely knew how to travel between planets. Meanwhile, in complete secrecy, they would prepare for the day when the aliens finally revealed themselves. The project had started small. Secret bases were built in the asteroid belt, far from any normal shipping routes. The best engineers and scientists from every nation on Earth were quietly recruited for a classified program. Officially, they were working on deep space mining operations. In reality, they were designing weapons of war. Status report on the Titan fleet. Mitchell asked Thompson. "All 12 ships are ready for combat, sir," she replied, reading from her data pad. "The flagship Sovereign finished its final weapons tests yesterday. Captain David Harrison is waiting for your orders." Mitchell smiled grimly. The Sovereign was humanity's masterpiece, 5 kilometers of hardened steel and devastating weapons. But it was not built like the elegant alien ships they had studied. Human engineers had learned from thousands of years of warfare on Earth. They did not build ships to look beautiful or to impress anyone. They built them to survive and to destroy. Every system on the Sovereign had 3 backup systems. Every weapon had been tested until it broke, then rebuilt to be even stronger. The armor was not smooth and graceful like alien designs, it was thick, layered, and designed to keep fighting even when heavily damaged. Where alien ships used advanced materials that were light and efficient, human ships used proven technology that was reliable and powerful. "Send a message to Captain Harrison," Mitchell ordered. "Tell him it is time to show our visitors what human hospitality looks like." Deep in the asteroid belt, the massive bulk of the UES Sovereign began to power up its engines. Captain David Harrison stood on the bridge, studying the display that showed the 3 alien ships approaching Earth. Harrison was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, the secret conflicts that had taught humanity how to fight in space when resources were limited and every mistake could mean death. "All stations, report readiness," Harrison called out to his crew. "Weapons systems fully charged and ready," reported Lieutenant Commander Robert Blake from the tactical station. "Navigation systems online, hyperspace drive ready for immediate jump," announced Navigator Sarah Williams. "Electronic warfare systems active, enemy communications and computer networks mapped and ready for disruption," said Chief Technical Officer Michael Davis. Harrison looked around at his crew with pride. Every person on this ship had volunteered for a mission they knew might end in their deaths. They had trained their entire careers for this single moment. They came from every nation on Earth, but now they served only one flag, the flag of humanity itself. Helm, set course for intercept, Harrison ordered. Maximum acceleration. Let's go welcome our guests properly. As the Sovereign moved through space, its sister ships throughout the solar system received similar orders. The Defiant moved from its hiding place near Jupiter. The Indomitable left its patrol route near Saturn. The Victorious abandoned its position in the outer asteroid belt. All across human space, the secret fleet began to move. For 30 years, alien probes had watched Earth and seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. They saw a divided planet with primitive technology, struggling to build simple space stations and small colony ships. They saw wars and conflicts and political divisions that made humans look weak and disorganized. But they did not see the secret factories on the far side of the moon, where advanced weapons were manufactured using technology reverse-engineered from captured alien probes. They did not see the hidden bases in the asteroid belt, where entire fleets were constructed and trained. They did not see the unified command structure that connected every human military force under a single, secret leadership. Most importantly, they did not understand that humanity's constant warfare had taught them something no peaceful alien civilization could comprehend: how to build technology that worked when everything went wrong, how to fight when victory seemed impossible, and how to never, ever give up. Contact in 47 minutes, Navigator Williams reported. Harrison smiled coldly as he watched the alien ships on his tactical display. They were approaching Earth with the confidence of predators who had never met their match. Soon, they would learn that humanity was not prey. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet called Earth grow larger on his main screen. His ship, the Council's Pride, was sleek and beautiful like all vessels of the Galactic Council. Its silver hull reflected starlight perfectly, and its advanced engines moved through space without making any sound or vibration. Approaching the fourth planet's orbital zone, reported his navigation officer, a tall being with green skin and 4 eyes. Still detecting only primitive energy signatures from the human homeworld. Veltar felt satisfied with what he saw. The human planet looked exactly like all the reports had described, a single world with small space stations and tiny ships moving between nearby moons. Their largest vessels were no bigger than the Council's cargo shuttles. This would be another easy conquest for the Galactic Empire. Any sign of their military forces? Veltar asked his tactical officer. Nothing significant, Commander, came the reply. We detect several small patrol ships near their moon, but they appear to be unarmed civilian vessels. Their energy output is barely registering on our sensors. Veltar clicked his mandibles together in amusement. As expected. Prepare the standard first contact message. Inform them that they must surrender immediately to avoid destruction. But before his communications officer could send the message, every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. Red warning lights flashed throughout the ship, and the main tactical display started showing readings that seemed impossible. Commander, shouted the tactical officer, his voice filled with panic. Massive energy signature detected. Something is approaching from the asteroid field. What kind of something? Veltar demanded, moving quickly to the tactical station. Unknown vessel, sir. But the energy readings? Commander, it's enormous. The computer says it's 5 times larger than our flagship. Before Veltar could respond, space in front of his small fleet suddenly exploded with light. When the glare faded, a massive shape hung in space directly ahead of them. The human warship Sovereign had dropped out of hyperspace like a metal mountain appearing from nowhere. Veltar stared at the impossible sight in front of him. The human vessel was not elegant or beautiful like Council ships. Instead, it looked like a weapon built by warriors who understood only strength and violence. Its hull was thick and angular, covered with armor plates and weapon ports. Massive gun turrets moved slowly as they tracked his ships. The entire vessel radiated power and menace like a sleeping predator that had just opened its eyes. By the ancient stars, whispered his navigation officer. How did they build something like that? Before Veltar could answer, his communications system activated without his permission. A human face appeared on his main screen, a middle-aged man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. The human was wearing a military uniform that looked functional rather than decorative. Unknown vessels, the human said in a calm, steady voice. This is Captain David Harrison of the United Earth ship Sovereign. You are currently trespassing in human space without permission. State your business here. Veltar tried to maintain his composure, but his hands were shaking as he activated his own communication system. "I am Commander Veltar of the Galactic Council. We have come to offer your species membership in our galactic empire. You will stand down immediately and prepare to receive our terms of surrender." The human captain looked amused by this demand. "I don't think so, Commander. Computer, target the asteroid cluster at coordinates 77 Alpha. Prepare demonstration shot." Veltar watched in growing horror as the massive human ship began to charge its main weapons. Energy readings spiked to levels his instruments had never recorded before. A low humming sound could be heard even through the vacuum of space as the Sovereign's primary cannon prepared to fire. "Wait!" Veltar shouted. "What are you doing?" "Showing you what human technology can accomplish," Harrison replied calmly. "Fire!" A beam of pure energy erupted from the front of the human ship. The light was so bright that Veltar's bridge crew had to shield their eyes. When they looked again, an entire asteroid, a rock the size of a small city, had been completely vaporized. Nothing remained except glowing dust particles that slowly drifted away into space. Veltar's tactical officer was staring at his instruments with disbelief. "Commander, that single shot generated more energy than our 3 ships combined can produce at maximum power." "Impossible," Veltar whispered, but he knew his instruments were not lying. "Now then," Captain Harrison continued, his voice still perfectly calm. "Let's try this conversation again. But first, I should mention that your hyperspace drives have been disabled. My technical team has been jamming your systems since the moment you entered this solar system." Veltar quickly checked his ship's status. Every hyperspace system was dead. His vessels were trapped, unable to escape or call for help. "How long have you been watching us?" Veltar asked, suddenly understanding that everything had gone terribly wrong. "We detected your surveillance network 30 years ago," Harrison replied. "We've been preparing for this meeting ever since. Did you really think a species that has survived ice ages and world wars would be caught unprepared?" As if summoned by his words, space around Veltar's small fleet began to light up with new hyperspace signatures. One by one, 11 more massive human warships materialized in perfect formation around the trapped Council vessels. Each ship was as large and heavily armed as the Sovereign. Each one aimed dozens of weapons directly at the alien fleet. "Allow me to introduce the rest of my battle group," Harrison said with a slight smile. "And before you ask, this represents roughly 10% of humanity's current fleet strength." Veltar felt his legs give out, and he collapsed into his command chair. Everything the Council believed about humanity had been wrong. These were not primitive savages playing with crude technology. These were warriors who had been preparing for war while pretending to be weak. "What do you want?" Veltar managed to whisper. "That's better," Harrison replied. "Now we can have a proper conversation." Captain Harrison stood quietly on his bridge, watching the alien ships try desperately to restart their disabled engines. His tactical display showed energy spikes from all 3 Council vessels as they attempted every emergency procedure they knew. But human electronic warfare systems had been specifically designed to counter alien technology, and there would be no escape until he decided to allow it. "Captain," reported Chief Technical Officer Michael Davis, "the alien ships are sending distress signals on multiple frequencies, but our jammers are blocking all transmissions beyond this solar system." Harrison nodded. "Good. Let them sweat for a few more minutes. Sometimes silence teaches better lessons than words." On the bridge of the Council flagship, Commander Veltar was experiencing something no Council officer had felt in over 1,000 years, complete helplessness. His crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to find any way to escape or at least send a warning to the Council homeworlds. "Status report," Veltar demanded, though he already knew the answer. "All hyperspace systems remain offline," his chief engineer reported. "The humans are using some kind of quantum interference field that we cannot break through. Our weapons are functional, but..." He looked at the tactical display showing 12 massive human warships surrounding them. "Commander, even if we could fight, we would be destroyed in seconds." Veltar stared at the image of Captain Harrison on his communication screen. The human looked perfectly relaxed, as if trapping 3 advanced alien warships was just another day's work for him. "I believe you wanted to discuss terms," Harrison finally said, breaking the long silence. "But there seems to be some confusion about who will be dictating those terms." "This is impossible," Veltar replied, his voice shaking. "Our intelligence reports indicated your species had barely achieved spaceflight. Your technology should be hundreds of years behind ours." Harrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted it to be. You see, Commander, we've known about your surveillance network for 30 years. Every probe you sent, every signal you intercepted, every assessment you made, we carefully controlled what you learned about us. To demonstrate his point, Harrison turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Blake, show our guests what our secondary weapons can do. Target the asteroid field at bearing 27 Mark 4. Aye, sir. Secondary batteries standing by. The space around the Sovereign lit up as dozens of smaller weapon turrets rotated toward a nearby cluster of asteroids. Each turret was no bigger than the main guns on Council ships, but there were so many of them that they covered the human vessel like thorns on a deadly flower. Fire, Harrison ordered simply. The coordinated barrage lasted only 10 seconds, but it was like watching the birth of a new star. Hundreds of energy beams reached out across space, each one precisely targeted. When the light faded, the entire asteroid field had been reduced to glowing dust. Not a single rock larger than a pebble remained. Veltar's tactical officer was openly staring at his instruments. Commander, I count over 200 individual weapon systems on that ship alone. Our most advanced battleships carry 12 primary weapons. This single human vessel has more firepower than an entire Council fleet. You're beginning to understand, Harrison said, having overheard the conversation through his monitoring systems. While your people developed elegant solutions to technological problems, we developed effective ones. Our ships aren't built to impress anyone, they're built by a species that has spent its entire history learning how to survive. Harrison paused, then continued in a more serious tone. You see, Commander, your council made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that a species engaged in constant warfare must be primitive and weak. But war doesn't make us weak, it makes us dangerous. Every human on these ships has studied thousands of years of military history. We know every trick, every strategy, every way that battles can be won or lost. As if to emphasize his point, the space around them suddenly filled with new hyperspace signatures. More human ships began appearing, not just the massive Titan-class vessels, but smaller cruisers, destroyers, and support ships. Within minutes, over 50 human warships had materialized in perfect battle formation. This is impossible, Veltar whispered. How many ships do you have? Enough, Harrison replied. And they're not all here in this system, Commander. While you were watching Earth and thinking we were a single-planet species, we were building colonies and bases throughout this entire region of space. Human settlements now exist in over 40 star systems. We've been expanding for 20 years. Veltar felt his world collapsing around him. Every assumption the Council had made about humanity was wrong. They weren't primitive, they were careful. They weren't weak, they were prepared. They weren't divided, they had united in secret against a common threat. What do you want from us? Veltar asked, his voice barely audible. Simple, Harrison replied. You're going to return to your council with a message. Tell them that humanity requests formal diplomatic relations, as equals, not as subjects. We're interested in discussing trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and mutual defense pacts. We have no desire to conquer your empire, but we will not be conquered by it either. Harrison's expression became harder. But understand this clearly, Commander. We will not bow to your council. We will not pay tribute to your empire. We will not become another client species in your collection. Any future contact with humanity will be conducted between equals, or it will not be conducted at all. The human captain paused, allowing his words to sink in. Your ship's systems will be restored once you reach the edge of this solar system. You have safe passage home, but don't mistake our mercy for weakness. The next Council fleet that enters human space uninvited will not be treated so gently. Veltar nodded slowly, understanding that his life, and possibly the future of the entire galaxy, had just changed forever. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of Commander Veltar's return. The great crystal chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 ancient civilizations gathered in emergency assembly. For the first time in recorded history, a first contact mission had not only failed, it had revealed the existence of a species that could challenge the Council's absolute power. High Councilor Vextar's crystalline form flickered with agitated colors as he called the session to order. His usual commanding presence seemed diminished, and his voice carried an edge of uncertainty that the other councilors had never heard before. Commander Veltar will present his report, Vextar announced, though his tone suggested he dreaded hearing what would be said. Veltar stepped forward, his body still trembling slightly from his encounter with the human fleet. In his hands, He carried data storage devices containing sensor readings that would change everything the council thought they knew about the galaxy. Honored councilors, Veltar began, his voice shaking, I must report the complete failure of our mission to System Sol 3. The humans were not only prepared for our arrival, they had been expecting us for decades. The chamber erupted in confused voices. Councillor Rao then clicked his mandibles aggressively. Impossible. Our surveillance indicated they barely possessed interstellar travel capabilities. Our surveillance was compromised, Veltar replied, activating the holographic display system. The humans allowed us to see exactly what they wanted us to see. The image that materialized above the chamber caused several councillors to make sounds of disbelief. The massive bulk of the UES sovereign rotated slowly in the hologram, its brutal design and countless weapon systems clearly visible to everyone present. By the ancient void, whispered Councillor Zalos, her shadowy form becoming even more insubstantial. What manner of vessel is this? The humans call it a Titan-class warship, Veltar explained, his voice growing stronger as he continued his report. This single vessel outguns our entire first contact fleet. Its main cannon can vaporize asteroids the size of small moons. Its secondary weapons number in the hundreds. Councillor Mordin leaned forward, studying the tactical readouts with his electronic enhancements. The power signatures, this defies everything we know about efficient ship design. Why would they build something so massive and heavily armed? Because they are warriors, Veltar answered simply. While we have spent millennia perfecting elegant solutions to technological problems, they have spent their entire history learning how to survive and fight. Their ships are not built for beauty or efficiency, they are built to win battles. The hologram changed to show the moment when 11 additional human warships had materialized around Veltar's trapped fleet. The sight of so many massive vessels appearing simultaneously caused several councillors to make sounds of alarm. 12 ships, counted Councillor Beltar, his rocky form shifting nervously. How many more do they possess? According to their captain Harrison, this battle group represents only 10% of their current fleet strength, Veltar replied. If his claim is accurate, they possess over 100 vessels of this class. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Councillor Thexval was the first to speak, her blue skin patterns flowing rapidly with agitation. In our 10,000 years of expansion, we have never encountered anything like this. How did they develop such capabilities without our knowledge? They were watching us while we watched them, Veltar explained. For 30 years, they studied our surveillance methods, our technology, and our standard procedures. They learned everything about us while revealing nothing about themselves. Councillor Rao then stood up, his forearms gesturing angrily. Then we must strike immediately. Gather the full council fleet and crush them before they can prepare further defenses. With respect, Councillor, Veltar interrupted, I do not believe that would be wise. The humans demonstrated capabilities that suggest they have been preparing for exactly such an attack. Their electronic warfare systems disabled our ships completely. Their weapons technology surpasses anything in our arsenal. And he paused, activating another holographic display that showed long-range sensor data from the Outer Rim territories. Our deep space monitors have detected human expansion throughout this entire galactic region. They are not a single planet species as we believed. They have colonies, bases, and fleets scattered across dozens of star systems. The chamber erupted in chaos as councillors realized the full scope of their miscalculation. Voices rose in panic and anger as the reality of the situation became clear. How could our intelligence be so wrong? Demanded Councillor Velkim, her tentacles writhing with distress. Because we underestimated them, Vextar replied quietly. We saw their wars and conflicts and assumed they were weak and divided. We saw their primitive technology and assumed they were backward. We never considered that their constant warfare might have made them stronger, not weaker. Councillor Zalos floated higher above her seat, her voice carrying an edge of fear. What did they want from you, Commander Veltar? Diplomatic relations, he answered. As equals, not as subjects. They expressed interest in trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and mutual defense pacts. But they made one thing absolutely clear, they will not bow to council authority. The silence that followed was broken by Councillor Mordin's electronic voice. For the first time in our recorded history, we face a species that can not only resist our expansion but potentially threaten our existing territories. The question now, Vextar said slowly, is whether we adapt to this new reality or prepare for a war unlike any we have ever fought. As the debate continued, monitoring stations throughout Council space began detecting more human fleet movements. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted forever, and the age of unchallenged Council dominance was ending. Humanity had not just refused to submit, they had changed the rules of the cosmic game entirely.